Lama Rinpo Taso Jivuran Benden Densho Kadi Chimbe Kone Jeso Kuson Toje Ngudu Zedu Pangden Sawe Lama Rinpo Taso Ningara Benden Densho Kadi Chimbe Kone Chodan Tumung Ngudu Zedu Pangden Sawe Lama Rinpo Taso Ningara Benden Densho Kadi Chimbe Kone Changjo Ningbe Ban Dembara Anjo Masan Jume Shera Baru Maye Manga Namge Ngovu Soso Rangye Yeshe Dezon Geve Yung Chanze Lo Dea Ta Gade Para Gade Para Bodhisattva So Dea Ta Gade Para Gade Para Sam Bodhisattva So Dea Ta Gade Para Gade Para Lo Ha Gere Tongda Jajo Shiva Da Mede Neve Pemban Roshi Bezon Sojo Ne Dashi Dele Anjo Yo So Shimbe Yo Let me remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, which is regarded as the highest level of motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta motivation, altruistic, we should participate in this discourse.
Dadi hunzum dirika da karsa 체면 남자 사이. 다배 롱다 hindu 시 다도 독사 체면 처음으로 지어로 어디 체면 남자 체면 남자 시베사이 혈중 뒤드마 혀다.
So those of you who have this English translation of the text titled as The Profound Reality of Interdependence, we are on page 117, and subpoint 2 reads appended presentation of sources of knowledge. And I was thinking, what sources of knowledge? Usually we translate that as valid or valid cognitions, right? Pramana.
어디 가서 이빠지 셔중세면 남자 해봐라. 남자 텐주에 룩 도저시나 랑즈다 일 밀레 시바데 세메텐이 이나데 밀로아티 시자데 세마티 시자제와다 추베고네 조베 군조 잠시에서 뢰주주니 시바다 면자고 저시장 랍든제에 나체마 시자디 시에다 면자고 이나 무슨 세마다 지바세마 롱그세마 백년지의 세마 시여데 세메청네 시제양의 조라 시자의 운주도 고주니 심마다 중세 고주다 시드 고주 배단제 슈 고주다 배당은 자의 슈 고주다 시리예베 시 대단히 시바이데요 무지기 세만이 정해데 세마시만이 제바세마를 뇌시로스 디실 식셀레 좀더 자지 다 세마시다 시제번 제바 세마니스 셰도스 데르가 세마고네 고제 세마니 가가지고 샤고다 샤드미라 데르거든 세다 다다 뭐마도 sardı müleri başa vurur. Da detayı sardı müleri sardı o çevamı koşa müleri şiva müleri ve şiva semesin şahı inşallah müleri sana kronpiye zeda yüle müleri tagara neydi lo tondusu da lo tondu da sıcak var da sema o seması lo tondu seması giriyoruz. O diyor yine 디 밀로와니 시자데 세마디 시다 제바데가 저거는 저베 군자다 리에 시제데 시바데 면자오스 다 밀로와사데 가도 면자에 바보야레스 시다스 리에 시제에 시아죠로 오 최도 리에 시제에 시아죠마요 디제다 리에 시제데 데즈바이스 오지다 시아죠 타나디 밀라사 디지털 레시제 디사오티 마리스 그 시제 통도 그 세메티 유리 예바 따라 제번 유나이네 데 밀라시오리스 어디서 밀라스 디자리아 따도 제베네 랑 니즈 조아메 밀라세 드레기지 마리 어디 문자오 예는 무슨 세마 제바사마 롱스마 penyen제스마 시에스타디 예장저 비지 지바히르 우스도 오늘서 무슨스마 지와스마니 조거다 데 시디야도 다 지와스마데 롱스마다 penyen제 이 파시는 시셔거서 어디미 예지와 예능 무슨스마 지와스마 롱스마 penyen제 스마 세마 시여데 세메 타니 시자데양 조라 시자는 무슨 운주도 고지니 시자가 운주고 예시지 다 고지들 정세 고기 현대 지고 인생 시작으로 와 어디 심을 정세 고기도 현대 고기 배단 자의 슈 고기 배단 자의 고기 당 신기의 실 배단 자의 슈 고기 신기 되다 실셔디 무슨 짓하면 라 세마니소 정예데 세마시마이 제바세만데 실세 다 건지 시유세마도 실 건지 무슨 세마 제바세마니는 누구리 소리
살리 디슈어게 디치 슈샤바게
라
디치 글랍샤바
그래
So we're on page 117 of this English translation, and we are looking at a brief presentation of valid cognition from Prasangika Madhyamika school of thought, the highest Buddhist school of thought, which will be slightly different than how valid cognition or pramana is defined in other schools of thought. And as Geshe said, the Tibetan word tsema, which simply means valid, but in this context we talk about valid cognition, not any other kind of validity here. And so in some other schools of thought, or generally, in a valid cognition is defined as, sarda miluva. Sarda means a fresh, a new, a non-deceptive cognition. So it has to be like that prime or the fresh or the first kind of moment. But according to Prasangika, they felt there is no need for that, miluva, sardu, a new or a fresh or a prime or first moment. It just is simply non-deceptive cognition. So non-deception is the defining characteristic of a valid cognition or pramana, tsema. And in general, when we think in terms of valid cognition, pramana, broadly stated, we talk about two types of valid cognition. One is ngusum tsema, direct valid cognition, and one is cheba tsema, inferential valid cognition. Okay? But as you can see here, sometimes in certain texts, they talk about as if there are four types of valid cognitions, in which case we have the ngunsum, direct valid cognition, and then we have the inferential valid cognition, cheba, and then they call it the valid cognition that is here translated as based on testimony. The Tibetan word is lung. Lung is Buddha's statement, right, that we think about. And then pe is the analogy example, right? But even though it looks like there are four of them, but actually all of them can be categorized within two types of valid cognitions, direct valid cognition and inferential valid cognition. So the valid cognition that is based upon testimony or lung, authentic Buddha statement, and valid cognition of analogy or example are actually different forms of inferential valid cognition. So they want the same thing, right? And so there is no contradiction there. So in general, as we said, we talk about two types of valid cognition. One is direct, non-conceptual valid cognition. The other is inferential valid cognition. Now, the inferential valid cognition deals with a phenomenon or reality which we call slightly concealed or hidden, right? And a reality or phenomenon that is extremely hidden or concealed. I'm literally translating here. There's two kinds of that.
What is that same as some key that they don't because it was some other new or DJ that they she is choosing go to the Penny Nisha she showed all the story. Because Pedro should go to the Shirgi, she said the Shirche also some Mojini, some song Sema Shimani Jiva Seman Duos, Benyan Shida, or the Jiva Sema race. Teach it to say, Zudo Zandreta Sema Hidden. She never never Sema Yin Shadows. What you were only Shizu Mahu is a roa.
No.
6 years ago, the Kari Shadow said, teaching of a Corsa. So, yeah, the semi so teacher succeeded. The daughter was 6 years ago, and the 2,000 semi hickies. She never never said that the daughter was Javara. It didn't semi hickies. Consequently, your mother semi tongue you were that was it. What the she's in the Madria Maris, who is the Vanin and Rogers, or this or that.
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains to the second paragraph on page 117. So as we said, in some texts, there is mention of 4, valid cognitions of pramana, and an example of that is great Indian master Acharya Chandrakirti's clear words, right, in the 6th house. So he talks about 4, valid cognitions. But then in his commentary on the 400 stanzas of the middle way, 400 stanzas is by Aryadeva, he talks about 2 types of valid cognitions. But there is no inconsistency here, as we said before. Broadly stated, valid cognition is of 2 kinds, direct valid cognition and inferential valid cognition. Now, if you want to split the inferential valid cognition further into divisions, then we get valid cognition of testimony or valid statement of a Buddha, and valid cognition of examples or analogy, right? So those are actually inclusive within inferential valid cognition.
What did he say on the Karsa? Sema de 6 years the Karsa thing. Zoro Zandel, he images. Gubulu Zodo Zandi, he that he never the low power and 0, T. Deval, the Tin 7 years. She's a Sungachi daughter of a young she with the Nishi of a car needle. She did. She's that someone who to the daughter in the days of Karsa. Karsa. Zundo Zandel, she knows Sema Hishe. She's ever draw, she knows Sema Nishi. Tinica, she's ever draw some with a Zundo, teaching her daughter was she were what she knows what she's out soon so years in daughter of Shunkonalia. She's ever draw Sema Nishi. Zundo Zandel Sema Hishe has in the Yeva Yamar, she's conscious Sema Nina Mandibi Yamaris. So that is what that.
So basically, the same kind of author, Chandrakirti, in his clear word commentary that is based upon Zhendok, dispelling disputes or refuting argumentation, as we say, because in that refuting argumentation is mention of 4 valid cognitions. So he just kind of went with that. And then Aryadeva in his Chatukshedhak, 400 stanzas on the middle way, talks about 2 valid cognitions. So in his commentary on the 400 stanzas, he just followed that way. And so it looks like is there some kind of inconsistency or contradictions among these categories of valid cognitions? There isn't, as we said. It's just a matter of classification, right? In general, we talk about 2 types of valid cognition: direct valid cognition, Musum Tsema, inferential valid cognition, Chebak Tsema. Now, the Chebak Tsema inferential valid cognitions include these other forms of inferential valid cognitions based on testimony, based on analogy.
Oh, dear, Sema, that she never was in the shadow. Tala Madua Rang Zidan Zindan, she young Jura Melu. Musu Semi saying, Yena. The game was tembe musum samata musum seme ngui korsa musum samata dakje yon la tembe se musum sama ni ye Himalaya dakje yon samle yida sungri la madu be yingo tang yingo tang dakje hida sungri tembe nesho sung tang ni ye la ni yo tena munzi mishi tabu angu tang munzi mishi je juzi jebe ngombo chemi shinshi tabu yingo tang di ngusung sida tang taa tema de shia mata shi toba da chema shi kisa kemi duwa hoti re dakje hida sungri tembe nesho ngusung tang ni ye chembe shiba tabu yingo tang dhamme chara chiri ngusum tabi shiba tabu nisho ngusum te ngusum sama som shawos o di imra ombu sujan teba she eni ishi taba teba shila suri teba she tiri ngusum sama som yos rangi ngusum sama misheba rangi ngusum sama misheba she sin dos ta de tejo ga rangi ngusum sama se kelin go maraba rangi meji de ta shirama kelema do teba simta ba rangi ba tizo rangi ngusum se kelin go ta tejo rangi ngusum kelin go marisi go ta
So, direct valid cognition or Muslim Dharma is defined as the kind of cognition that is non-conceptual and does not rely upon any evidence, what called logical evidence or reasoning. Okay? So then we can kind of look at different types of direct valid cognitions of Muslim Dharma. The one kind is direct valid cognitions that are dependent upon sense faculties, such as valid cognition apprehending blue, right? So visual perception is dependent upon what we call targen. Targen is a principal condition which is actually the visual sense faculty, right? And so that kind of direct valid cognition. The second kind of direct valid cognition is that which is dependent upon mental faculty. So we have mental direct cognitions of realities, and these perceptions are dependent on the fundamental condition or targen, which is mental sense faculty. Then the third kind is what we call yogic direct perceptions valid, right? Nenjor Muslim Tibetan. And this kind of yogic direct valid perceptions, they are dependent upon the fundamental condition of the integration of calm abiding, shamatha, and special insight, vipassana, right? The unity of calm abiding and special insight is the fundamental targen condition, principal condition, that gives rise to yogic direct perception. So examples of yogic direct perceptions are the valid perceptions of coarse or subtle selflessnesses. Okay. Yeah.
What is
I'm sorry. And one more, the Prasangikas do not accept what is called valid self-knower or self-perceptions, right? In other Buddhist schools of thought like Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Siddhamatrins, and Seventh Madhyamikas, they do accept there is something called up-perception or self-knower, self-awareness, right? Rangrit, remember? And so therefore, they talk about, direct self-knower valid perceptions. But Prasangikas say there's no need for that. There isn't one. So they do not assert, a direct valid self-knower.
what is the Dhamma chara chiri ngusum tobe shiva tabu nisho ngusum sama som jiyos rāngshī ngūsū sēmā mīshīpa xie sīndō. Chīr nēnshō ngūsū dē ngūsū jī sēmā sūmōs. Rāngshī ngūsū sēmā mīshīpa xie sīndō. Chīr nēnshō ngūsū yīnā yīngū yīgō jāng. Ngūsū sūmdī xie wē sē yīngū yīmī gō dē. Tīñī gīwē xie chirō sē yīshī kō jī tsōhā dīdū sō. Nyō yīngū nē kā nāng tādā yīnā nē bā mī gō bā. Nyōngshā nyōngshī tā tē bā yī dū lā nā sūmbī xie rī. Rāngshī dā mī rā wō. Tā sū jī dzēn dā ngō sū. Tēnē rāng zīdā jī yu dī chē wē, xie chā kō kīr bā dā, mī lī wē xie bā tē, jī bā sē mē ngō yī sī. Rāng zīdā yu dī xie chā kō kīr lī tē mē, tē tē jī bā sē bā yī sī. Yī nē tōng yī tā bā jī bā sē mā tā wā ngō sō jī jī bā tā. Xie sūng jī tā wā lōng yī tā jī. Jibē lōng jī shēng jī dē xie bā xie lōng rāng tē sō mē lō tō wā jī bā tā wā yī jī jī bā tā. Pā mē nē pā rāng tā rā wā nyā mē jī bā tā wā pē nyēn jī tā nyēn jī kī jī bā tā sō mō sī. Pē nyēn jī jī bā sī tō kā tā jī bā tē tō wā jī rā tē kāng jē tē nā tōng yī tō bē nī jī bā sī mā tā wā tō jī bā xie. Xie sūng tā bē lōng kā tā yī jī bē lōng jī shēng jī tē rāng tō mī lō tō wā tē nī xie tū kō yī tō bā jī bā xie, kā sā lōng tā bā xie. Wā tē yī sī wā yī jī jī bē lōng shēng jī tē xī bē lōng rāng kā tēn xie wā tō mī lō wā tō bē jī bā tā wā yī xī jī bā tā wā. Pā mī nē pā rāng tā rā wā nyā bē jī bā tā wā tē pē nyēn xē kī jī bā tā wā sō mō sī. Tē rī pē nyēn xē jī bā tā pā rāng tā pā mī sā jī sī sīm xē rīng rā bā jī tā rā wā. Tē tā pā rāng sā jī tā pā mī nī wā tē rā bā yō rī sā jī wā rī wā tē pē nyēn xē sī rī sī wā tē pā sōng yō rī sī wā rā. Xē yā tēn chū lē wā tēn bā tāng chū sū sā wā tā rā tēn bē jē bā tē nīng jī yā wā sō jāng yō dō sī. Wā tē xē yā tā yī jī rū shī na tēn chū tēn tā jā shī sī rō. Tā tē chū wā kā yī sī tēn chū sā wā tēn shī bā jī rī sī. Kā yī sī tēn chū sā wā shī bā jī rī wā shī bā jā rī mī tā kō rī sā yī rī tē rī tēn chū sā wā shī bā jā shī rī sā rō. Bē tēn chū yī yō sī. Chū sū sā wā tā rī wā bē yō dō. Sē mā rā sā tī mī lō wā rī wā gō bā tā. Ngū sū lō tō chū gō bā sō tē. Dē rī mī shē tē. Chēn shī dā jī bā kī chā bē sē. Chē shī sō dā ngū sū sē mā yē bā tā. Sē mā tā chū shī mī kī wā shē bā sō. Sē mē nāng shā shē dā mā rā wē shē rō wā shā. Tā tēn chū lō dā kō chū shī yī dā sē mā kī wā yā mā rā sē tī yī rā. Tā rāng nā yu chū dā shē yī dā mā rā tī wā rā wā. Wā tī sū sē.
So Geshe read, the remaining page 117 and over to page 118, and so we, talked about direct valid cognition, defined it, and different types of direct valid cognition. Now the next one is inferential valid cognition, or cheba in Tibetan. So this is the kind of valid cognition, that relies upon, or that's dependent upon what we call valid reasonings or logical evidence, and so therefore it's called inference, that you draw based upon valid evidence or reasoning. And so then, so there are what are called different types of inferential valid cognitions. As you can see on page 118, there is the inferential valid cognition based upon what we call murtop, literally means power of the fact, right? That's one kind. The second one is the inferential valid cognition that is dependent upon testimony or the trustworthy statement, right? We call lung, Buddha statement usually. And then third is the valid inferential valid cognition that's dependent upon analogy or examples, right? Those three kinds. So the examples for every one of them is if you say, the inferential cognition realizing emptiness is an example of the first kind. That is inferential valid cognition dependent upon the power of the fact reasoning. Okay, that's one. The second one, example of the inferential valid cognitions based on testimony, like that's not correct translation, lung, right? Valid statement, let's say, is that in the Buddha's teachings, Buddha mentioned how from generosity you achieve resources, isn't it? From morality you achieve good rebirth. Right? These are the examples of the second kind because based upon the validity of Buddha's statements, so inference is drawn. That's the second kind. The third one is the inferential valid cognition dependent upon analogy, is you find similar examples of something and based on the power of that. So here they call Pamin, translates as Gael, I think Gayal, or it's some kind of ox, because of the similarity between that and the cow, right? Using that as an example, then we may be able to infer something about the cow. So that's the third category, inferential valid cognition dependent upon analogy or examples, Pinyerjel in Tibetan. So as Geshe explained, that according to Prasangikas, valid cognition can also be what called chulshe, mistaken perception. Yeah, because there are others who say that a valid cognition can be mistaken. Right? The Prasangika says a valid cognition and a mistaken perception does not have to be mutually exclusive, because we find an example that's both. And the way they explain is that valid cognition is valid in terms of perceiving its main object, we call shelcha, referent, right? But it is mistaken with regard to its appearing object, right? Nangyul, the generic image that appears as a real object, right? In terms of that, it's mistaken. So it's a mistaken perception, but it's a valid cognition because it validly perceives its main object, whatever it is. So that's the Prasangika's kind of a take on the relationship between valid cognition and mistaken perception. And then, of course, as we said, inferential valid cognition or Chabatsama is really contingent upon a valid reasoning or evidence, right? And so there's that whole scholarly perspective on this. So some scholars will say that in order to have an inferential valid cognition, you really don't have to use what we call ta yangda, perfect reasoning, right? The reasoning that fulfills three set of criteria. Based upon consequential reasoning, tells you can have a valid cognition, right? And Prasangikas accept that. But others say, you know what, in order to have valid inferential valid cognitions, you must, right, use perfect reasoning, tak yangda. You cannot have inferential valid cognitions based upon consequential reasoning or teljur, right? But the Prasangika say no, it's possible to have inferential valid cognitions based upon consequential reasoning. I know we are getting into technicalities here, so yeah.
What is Garza? That is Doya Lungi Jidubane, because Papa so no mal good to postpone us. That no almost said 처음부터지 랑시면 매주세요. 뒤집어 이제 해봐오스.
너 가르쳐 again.
나
가르쳐 안 되지.
네. 너무 군이 터와봐서 좋아.
라.
너무 오마세야 되네. 그반들이 믿으세요. 저봐주세요.
알레노서. 알람 오말로서.
너무 오마세야 되지고 너무 오마세야 희고로. 어디 랑시면 다 너무 오마 요마르세. 어디 저봐 이제 와.
알레노서.
어디 스모 너무 오마를 군이 뭐 태저봐 봉알라. 유마다비 희나양 해소돼야 돈이 버자 라 건배네 해소 송무세 심어도 따와때 법도 때라 대다 고메 돈이 더 고발이 그러지 되절람지 주질라 무저기네 되게 심지 때바 넘터봤나 손도 줘라 저라 심지 때문에 제는 장면성도 소소배 고자만 진정 때문에 주된 체월 힘든데 특별히 상담 몸에 답진다 심대 체월 대원 조이 전에서 장면성 군수만 제가 이 해봤다 장면성지 정말 무슨 제말 상사의 송신 이제 뒤 공연 소는니 뒤 공연 소는니 뭐 해라 근데 되게 링에 양도 지다나 돈이도 나도사도 더봐 네 조는지 봐라 조라 주사시 개발은 돈이다 내가 해봤지 진짜 그저봐 시사들 소리발 샤오스 데다 저 주사시 개발자는 진짜 세나시로다 니나숑로 줘야 어떻게 개발시네 저 주사시 샤리스 신고에 돈이 돈이 더 와지 바로
Tandaki umelam de tobar koba yo mar seder koba yo res disum gor.
da di jude shiwa da di jude shiwa ni ta di ma lamsa shi yo mar da mo shi do.
So we are on page 119, subpoint 3, responding to the objection that the Madhyamika path or middle way path is pointless. In other words, in some debate that there's no need to cultivate the middle path, right? It's just it has no meaning, pointless, right? So Prasakika is also responding to that. So this is where they talk about the need to cultivate insight into emptiness, and how bodhisattvas in certain bodhisattva literature says they spend 3 great countless eons to be able to fulfill the accumulations of merit, punya, and accumulation of insight or wisdom, gyan, so why would Bodhisattva spend such a long time, right, cultivating the path? It is a pointless thing to do. And of course, when we look at the path, it starts with the path of accumulation, choklam. Then second one is the path of preparation, right, jolam, or here is called the path of connecting or something. Actually, the path, that bridging path is better. Jol means to connect, So path of conjunction or whatever you want to call it. And so the path of jolam, preparation, or the conjunction or connection, connecting link, that's a better, connecting path, has 4 levels, right? There is the what we call the heat level, and then there's the peak level and so forth. And so on all of these paths, you are inferentially cognizing, for example, emptiness, right? In terms of that, all the 4 levels of the path of connection are just the same. They are all focused on emptiness. They all validly ascertain emptiness. But the difference among these levels is in terms of clarity, isn't it? Because it is as if you peel off conceptual layers, right? When you go from one level to the next level, the conceptual layers is peeled off. So it has more clarity. The higher level conceptual layers peeled off. So there's more clarity. Otherwise, they are all cognizing, inferential cognizing emptiness. Yeah, yeah.
What did it cause? Shantideva. Jiva Shantideva. Changme Song Kundu Zoma Zeva Yishivata. Changme Song Gyeltsen. Toma Mujo de Zimba, Shangsa de Song Xingsi. Give Changme Song Sosa Zero, the Changme Tambo or this. Changme Tambo did this, Shangsim Temban Shagoris. Some shows a Kundu Zomba Zeva is Hivatata. Changme Song you Toma Mujo in Jovan, Shangsa de Song Xing. Tea Kuya. 초론에 이바 대응고양 초론에 밖에 건시 점에서 고수가 초론을 쏘고 그랬어요. 근데 대신이를 얘기하는 식당나 돈이도劳动 사도 타와나 조금 좋을 보고다. 다 니도 더 보고서 있는 게 싫다 소리서 살아왔지. 예봐요 말이다. 더 먹고 드시는 게나 되죠다. 돈이도 배치다 소리도 대신 소는 좋은 거 배치고. 어디 배치고. 다 돈이 뭐도 돈 배치고로 어떻게 방세야 시그리스.
We're at the bottom of page 119 there in the Bodhisattva Bhumi or the ground by Asanga. It is mentioned that, as we said earlier, bodhisattvas may take 3 great countless eons to fulfill their 2 types of accumulation merit and wisdom of the inside. Where does it all begin? If that's the question, it all begins with the path of accumulation or tsoglam. Okay? So as Geshe mentioned that when this is like in the case of someone who enters the bodhisattva path afresh from the beginning, okay? Because this only makes sense in that. Not someone who have been through the Sharavaka path, realized emptiness and entering, that's a different storyline, right? But we're saying somebody starting with the bodhisattva path afresh, when that practitioner, achieves the integration of calm abiding and special insight with regard to emptiness, right? When they achieve that realization, then they move from the path of accumulation to the path of preparation. Okay? Not in the case of somebody who are coming from the Sharavaka path, because they already realized a different story, right? Measure said in Alia, Chokjonigal, measure Sasigorba. Measure said the Choklam the Jolam.
Measure said,
Measure said, don't that the current Hashel.
Mubacho said that those lawyer talked of the young going to Shalaria, this one. Mubacho says,
I was just kind of asking for a clarification of this term here. Where is that term? Here on page 119, second paragraph in the middle, it says, with inspired conduct. That's how he translated it, right? The different words mature. So I might, it's similar. The Myoba has a sense of aspiration or imagination. And so the paths of accumulation and preparation or connection, so the first 2 paths, collectively are called inspired contact or aspired contact. Because here, your practice is largely contingent upon your aspiration, right? That's the sense of that,
What did you got? That you Paglam laws. Tap Keva changes in the Shambaji. Tony was not of some issue. Shanson J. Don't be saying who in the Yen Sarah Guasso, Chuyo, the Dajang, goes a me. Trojan chamber the same kiss or December in the round the table you did to meet the cover, then she went. Saki showers, success and make it only, then the Maripatan, Tip, Paja Karuk, Leva, the Malipad, Jogos. O dear, that success and message, he Sabaji, Roman Sekes, Hirayera, 다 디사지서 가르쳐서는 또 저거사 디디지 말이봐 디바자기 가루게 레바도 말이봐 조슈바 디지다 디마르 바자 조마슈데 상메 디조슈바데 사지스 외스
Tenzin ham yang de paksa kangrung so
라
Tenzin ham de paksa kangrung gi. So when page 120, where the darshan mark or the path of seeing, Thonglam in Tibetan, this Mayana path we are talking about, is the direct realization or non-conceptual realization of emptiness, which is conjoined with we call special methods, skillful means. So the skillful means would include great compassion, mahakaruna, and bodhicitta, altruism. Right? These benevolent attitudes are accompanying the realization of emptiness. But the realization is non-conceptual, direct, isn't it? Yeah? And it starts with the first spiritual ground called joyous spiritual ground, right? Rabga in Tibetan, right? Very joyous, that's what it is. And so in the Bodhisattva path, there are 10 spiritual grounds, bhumis, right? From the very happy, joyous bhumi all the way to the 10th ground. And so along this, you have the direct non-conceptual realization emptiness, but that's conjoined with, say, great compassion and bodhicitta. Okay. And then there is also a distinction made between sakche, sangme, like a path that is, let's say, for lack of a better word, called contaminated sakche, and uncontaminated path, sangme. So what difference, how do we differentiate is that if your path is still kind of a stained, if you will, either by grasping at self or by its imprint, then that path is called contaminated path, right? But if your path is not contaminated or stained, marked by grasping at self or its imprint, then it's the uncontaminated path, sangme. Okay.
What is Garza? Chodishimode, Sajibode, Tatoing was the Sato. 그런 원문은 제가 말해서 지나 그런 제도 가수리야 소조모서 그래 제가 샤수리 어디서 그래
in the middle of page 120, that's where we are. As Geshe mentioned that there are 10 spiritual grounds, literally sa dashabhumi, asserted in the Mayana practice context. And all of these 10 spiritual grounds are alike or same in that they are all non-conceptually realizing emptiness. But then where do we find the differences among these spiritual grounds? They are more described in terms of the achievements in the post-meditational period. When you come out of that deep meditation, in the post-meditational period in terms of accumulation of merits, right, and other qualities, so the differentiations are made among the 10 spiritual grounds.
어디 사실 냠샤도 거기 민는 미라셔야 간자 냠샤이가 또 이모도 직발이디 신의 제도도 야소는 소사야 되게 톱쇼도 개발 요리스 어디서 그래요.
In other words, that on all of these 10 spiritual grounds of bodhisattvas, if you are entered into this deep meditation on emptiness, we call it meditative equipoise on emptiness, you are non-dualistically and non-conceptually seeing emptiness. It's all same for all of them. But when you come out of that deep meditation, so in terms of the abilities, the power you have to be able to do things in the post-meditation period, including the accumulation merit, there's a huge difference.
사진영사 이시 신이 도시를 개발매요. 뭐면서 밑에 원제 제도지 가서 연대 기대 시에 개발매를 건 사주셔 송라스 사주데 다냠샤 돈이 우선도 사주여로 뒤에 뭐먹는 메라 개발요 말이스. 신의 연대 고마야 거기서 보니 빼게 또시 좀 개발요래스. 어다 사치마시마도 또시 그러.
No.
어디서
So this is basically what Geshe said earlier. He just repeated that in terms of seeing the emptiness non-dualistically and non-conceptually, really direct, all the 10 spiritual grounds of bodhisattvas are just same. It's not like one is better than the other or anything like that. But in terms of one's ability to be able to do a lot of things or cultivate many other qualities in the post-meditational period, then there are differences, And it is called ground, spiritual ground, sa, because just like the ground supports all the things, structures upon it, so these, etymologically, these grounds support different, qualities and insights that you gain on the different, right, on those levels.
어디 다 사진 개발 가르스는 그래서 시에서도 문제 제도지 가서 연대 된시비 개발문화에 관해서 주셔 송라 되게 실례스 그래서 연대의 정 폐회 개발 사주와 연대 정몽이와 사탕보 무스들 이바마 이바 정몽을 주고 정공도 개발 지켜리스 네 건 성바 성라 대신에 연대의 정 폐회 개발은 사탕보 연대에는 가서 야자 중이 더 소소스다 산이발 돌아 중이도 되어 파루로 어디시 롱주도 공디 폐회 개발 더 보고서 롱 치마치마야 줘야 네바 개발지요 니시 파질라베 개발 시드다 사제 파질라고 어디 개발시 사탕보 집에 파질 라바 또 소스 이바스리 바지리 토로 파질라베 개발시 사탕보라 파질 개발네 사탕보라 집에 파질 라고 토바 소스 이바스리 바지 파질에 라바 토고 디초 다 파질라베 개발네 늘 친시 내기 자자는 상예사 코너 예 로는 메라 디 바로 친시 벌지 시바다 잔 시바잖아 로는 파지 주의 생이바 예 샤드 예도 샤드 여도 남바 짐바소니 그래서 쇼생이 샤드 여도 남 개완제바 남이 개완제바소 쉐바니 사탕볼라 폐지는 잡을링 제부 쇼시 소다진 능시를 능가지 인숨서도 어디셔 대단히 도즈데 살아 사는 게 남자 두무 많이 받는 제발 현시 그소서 대다 살람 개바가 말이 아니 사는 남자 제발 현달 시구레스 티스
So Geshe's explanation pertains to that big paragraph in the middle of page 120. So as Geshe explained earlier, that in terms of seeing emptiness nakedly, non-conceptually, non-dualistically, all the 10 spiritual grounds of bodhisattvas are same. There is no qualitative difference here. But in terms of other aspects, there's a lot of differences. So those differences are kind of classified into 4 different kinds, if you will. And the first one is as compared between the first spiritual ground or the second spiritual ground. The one on the second spiritual ground had a lot more qualities, if you say, right? For example, they said that on the first spiritual ground, one will be able to see like 1,200 Buddhas or something. But on the second one, the number increases a lot more, right? You might see like 12,000, Buddhas. So like that. So that in terms of qualities that you acquire as you move ahead on the level, you have many more qualities. That's one a big difference there. The second one is, as we said, in terms of your ability. So now you gained more ability to be able to advance to the next level, right? So in terms of that ability, also there's a difference between the first, second, third, and so forth. The third one is that as you move from the one spiritual ground to the next one, it is as if you gain a specialty in a particular perfection, paramitas. So on the first spiritual ground, bodhisattvas have this special ability in terms of the perfection of generosity, dan paramita. Now, even on the second spiritual ground, you have the specialty in terms of the perfections of morality or ethical discipline, and so forth. So the 10 perfections are correlated with the 10 spiritual grounds. So that as you move on one, so you gain certain specialty, right? It's almost like my footnote. You are not generic anymore. You have a specialty. It's a footnote, okay? Geshe didn't say that. So if wrong, I'm wrong, but my footnote. Then the fourth one is in terms of, what we call the technically ripening rebirths, right? Again, there are differences. For example, on certain ground, you may be able to be reborn as a universal king that rules over one continent, But on another level, you are a universal king, Chakravartin Raja, now ruling over 2 more continents or the 4 more continents, like that. So that kind of rebirth differences, exist. And then there is somewhere in the middle the kind of a clarification with regard to what does paramita means, perfection gone beyond, right? Some people would take the perfection, explain it only in terms of the Buddhahood, right? That's the only perfected thing, isn't it? So that's the resultant state, right? When you are enlightened, so everything is perfected here. But here we are using the perfection of paramita, also referring to the paths that will deliver you to that perfection state. So these paths are also called perfection paths, So the paramita can apply to the resultant enlightened state. It can also, refer to the path that delivers you there, Then what follows in the text, as you can see, there is, of course, that debate, again, that when you are in that deep meditative state on emptiness, right, where you are non-conceptually, non-dualistically perceiving emptiness, there are some scholars say, when you are in that state, your mind has no object, no focus. Are you with me? And so now in the Kongpa Rapsal, illustrating the thought and so forth, they refute that, right? If in that meditative state, if you have no focus for your wisdom, right, then so many problems arise, right? Then in the state of Buddhahood, you have to say there is no the omniscient wisdom doesn't see anything. It has no object, right? Then so many enlightened qualities become like, and so the point is that even when you are in a deep meditation or emptiness, non-dualistically, yes, your subjective wisdom and emptiness has become inseparable. It doesn't mean your mind has no focus, right? Emptiness is the focus, and so that's the debate, right? Yeah.
Oh, did you? That Sanjay said, "Yishizme, Sanjay Yishi Chinjuda." She said, "English was that. Sanjay said, "Gaga me tell." She said, "Did you maris?" Sanjay said, "You yoris." Shiva yor Ganga yoris. Sanjay took the Chaming Jeso. Chaming Jet the thing is in Changway Mambodang. Chang Mambodang. The Dorjee he never joined, so he joined ever song sauce. Omagambera says, Sanjay said, Shiva Mena, in the top of the Mishiva head, or the Kaji, the Shansa so do the Sanjay said, Euro, or the Yemi Tagari show song had to take my risk with that.
So relating to that argumentation, if one claims that when transcendental beings, Aryas, are absorbed deeply into emptiness, right, non-dualistically, if you claim that realization or the wisdom has no object, no focus, right, then so many problems will kick up because that path is supposed to lead you to the enlightened state, isn't it? Now you have to end up saying that the enlightened beings, omniscient wisdom, right, which normally sees all phenomena, now it doesn't see anything, right? And then which means that while enlightened beings have no great love, Mahametri, has no great compassion, Mahakaruna, and then all forms of samadhis, meditative absorptions we talk about, right, they all become useless, right? So many what are called those consequences will happen, because usually we know that it's the enlightened state where we talk about how Buddha's qualities include the 37 wings of enlightenment, isn't it? So all of those wings become meaningless, and it's like you work for Buddhahood, then when you become Buddha, there is no consciousness, there is no mind, your wisdom is useless, it's not saying anything. So that's the refutation, argumentation, right? Yeah.
Here, low, Lujaki. Yinami Samayo Hivada. Bow Janga, Chumba Higi, Shizatanje, Chalaje, Sheda, Jubale, Nanguchi, Yine, Musunzi, Jeda, Shundian, Sanjay Sanjay Simbata, go to Tommy Silverden. She saw Lutama Lena Sanjay, you. He the you, he used the Sanjay Mijavata. He shouted, she said, Chavata. Also the Sibata. Tommy was by she then does. She chewing the valley. She there may tabaco. Not so chimaji. She there may not soon chimasin. Commenter. Tissue was so I sim. Does that lead chimaji? He made chimasin. You say, Maino, she do you go Chimaji, Merstuna, Chimasigan, whom is a Hindu. He made something Chimasik, never shaken. Was a something never Mishibachi soon. Did you then send the Chimani? Told me the day give a man in young. Similar she was so down. Chimanam, some year here in Mashupe. During the way in Biandin, Chungum said down, Naga he is what that down. Should she York so Shindu Dirung to Song so. There is Shindu Semi Chima Sevana. Singing Zeva did the same Shinju Sevada. Chima Lovo in Shiva Tonchi and Major. Shinda Gashi Deva the Chiva. Ki Yang Jeka Song sauce. For Sanjay Sala in the Hiyamas that and she was the Rivatami Jiro, so this Jimaris, the Jimaris. The college was so Lamakuba to me to us. But the Sanjay Sala here is this or that.
So Geshe read basically page 121, little over page 122, and so tied up with that argumentation, where certain claims that the wisdom in the state of equipoise and emptiness has no object; it doesn't see anything, and so when you attain Buddhahood, right, there is no such thing as Buddha's wisdom, or at least it has no object. Then, as we said, so many issues come up, like we have to say Buddha has no great compassion, no great love. Buddha's omniscient mind is just useless, it doesn't see anything. But that contradicts a lot of other things stated in text. For example, in the citation, we talk about how the Nagarjuna says that an enlightened wisdom is inconceivable for the ordinary mind. Actually, like every moment of an omniscient mind sees everything that exists. Not only the whole omniscient mind, a moment of that can see. So all those qualities, right, are invalidated and undermined with that kind of a claim. And as Geshe said, then what's the point of working so hard on the 5 paths and 10 grounds, accumulating merit and wisdom and increasing all of them, right? At the end, when it all culminates, you become Buddha, well, that wisdom is useless. It doesn't see anything. So it becomes very weird, how should I say, standpoint there, right?
What the Sanjay is Sarah Sim Joe Love Tony. Number Dabata, Cheve, Sim, Number Duja, Mirror Tonis. 6 number Daba, Sim Joa in la Tedra, Naticona, number of Mirino. She got the Dole Domin sit there, part here. Rounded Singapore, Muslim say Singapore rounded young Singapore by Tom Namzo Gavale, Mount Shading. Moreover, Chevy Sheda, Shera Meji, Shera Jig, Song so. Very number of Bangbe, sim number of Gumbai, we call number some year there, number of Tawa in here, number Bangbatang, number of same year was so, do nam so, Nanji here the Ishiti, Sibachane, doing on Zeba, Mangu, young Ishin, Basang Shin, she's also there. Jibu Sai, Saji Nansha, Saju Rinji, Dread, Shuni, Rondre, Tony, Tachimbe, Kuni, Taba Shade, Rijet Chimale, Sanjedan Suku, Der, Sonum So, Le Shumai, Choy Kuni, Dordin, Jibos, Ijesole, Chung, Shesos. The Sanjay Sala saw in Sunday, saw Lajinga, the Chamber Zawanga Yoris, and Sanjay Sala, Chamber Meva Maris, or this or that.
So, as stated there, even though mind and the defilements, they have kind of existed together for a long period of time from the beginning, but the defilements not penetrated into the nature of the mind, right? And they are removable and they could be separated. So the defilements in the mind, however powerful they are, they're adventitious, they are temporary, And so that's why through cultivating pattern practices, we purify our mind of the defilements, So defilements are abandoned, purified, not the mind, right? And the mind evolves and become enlightened. So when you become enlightened, that mind is able to see everything, right? Realities as they are. So one cannot say that in the state of Buddhahood there is no wisdom or anything like that. I think where this kind of argumentation might come about is, decoding improperly a statement such as in the state of enlightenment, Buddhahood, there is no concepts or conceptualization, right? Conceptual thoughts. So just like, in a footnote, in our life, right, these conceptual thoughts really stir us, move us, right? In the enlightened state, there is no such thing. There is no movement of conceptual thoughts. So some have decoded that message wrong, saying that, well, in the Buddhahood, there is no wisdom, right? There is no mind, there's no concept, so there's no mind, which is the wrong interpretation or decoding the message. So as we find it stated here with the example, that there is a particular kind of, special kind of maybe firefighter's gear. It is like the fireproof, clothes. If they get dirty, you can sort of burn it in the fire, but it will only take away the stain, but won't burn the material. So like that, through our practice, we can burn, with the wisdom, we can burn the defilements in the mind, but we are not burning the mind itself, because mind will come out actually better, pure as it is, right? Mind is luminous and cognitive in its nature. It has never been stained by defilements, So that's the issue here. And as stated by Nagarjuna in the Precious Garland, Ratna Avali, that through the accumulation of merit, what happens eventually is when the accumulation merit is completed, then that helps us to attain the enlightened form body, right? And when the accumulation of wisdom is completed, then that helps us attain the truth body. So it's not like in the Buddhahood nothing exists at all, right? All these enlightened bodies exist and the omniscient mind exists, and so that's most game.
What is Sanjay or you can use Basan Shings as well, or Namdo Mirakan Shingers at these.
No, sure.
She is all done there. Jibut Namshala, Tiba Shimbulam, Zova Yamsalang Base, Music is Sadam. Papa Sachurimji, do Sony Ramre, Tony, Tarshib Guni, Tabashi, there is Chimale, Sanye Namji, Sugunder, Sun so Shumali. Chui couldn't dodge Jebo, Ishe saw the Chung, she saw. Tian Kumalana Meva, Moon say June, Saji Junde, Yichamo, the Winnie Junde, hit of Chamo, the Winnie Pajim, the Chuni, the Roger, young Roger the Shugbe, Nina Chamo, the Palmaji, Sur Shugaba Yula, Tiga Niva Namrolam. Ishi Shidawa, Ishi Shidawa, Nina Chamuja, Parmaja, Yamaja, Yakin, Hisha Tiniba, Keva Tata, like the Jura Lamashaba, wasn't the Sibi. Say Shukumu, Zevata, what of a Sanjeva, Hesha, T. Guki on the Zeni, T. Shidula. Junde Paji Mum, Tika Niba, Namdra Moon, Zed, Yasha, Yamshi Woji. Ishi Shukuru Joatan, Paji Mum, the Shuni Timata, Joatan, Wunjukun Joatan. Junde Paji Mum, because Junda Sembe, Tembe Luti, Rinda Shima, Lungu, Lucy Jurshin. Tea the number of meadow Shendi, Shing Shang Namso, Jubaku Taiba Tamba Day. Gucci Jida the wounded Zeva Sheva in was, 어디 인상예살이 시바요리스 구시지자도 원시 시바면 구시 20원 지하 용말와 제가 상예사가 시바요리스 디기디리서리.
So Geshe read page 123 there, and as explained that as an enlightened being or Buddha, right, they see everything non-conceptually. So there are no concepts. Buddha doesn't need to process things conceptually, sees everything nakedly. So because there is no conceptual thought existing in movement, so that's decoded wrong and said now there is no nothing exists in the Buddha's right wisdom. So that's wrong would be. And as a matter of fact, a lot of things exist in the Buddhahood, as we mentioned earlier, the enlightened bodies here. So when often we talk about that an enlightened being has 4 kayas, bodies, right? That we have the natural truth body, Savabhavika kaya, in Tibetan. Then there is the Sambhoga kaya, complete resource body or enjoyment body. Then there is the Yishe Chugu, exalted wisdom body. And then there is the Nirmana kaya, the emanation body, right? And so enlightened being, has all these enlightened bodies, and these things do see realities of phenomena non-conceptually. What? Oh, okay, yeah.
구시고 고는 상지 기사에 영 넘버다와 대대네 대적게 양을 양이 답에나 라신남다다 녀물로 제마 다와 시베 너 로브남다 대샤니 니가고 니고 시다진이 시자 때 세바 타두고 남다 샤디 이가 고니고 시다진이 타두고 이신 주고네 얘네 이신가서 망고 룽군 고통박 유미시 송지바 유미시 통제바 유미시 대탐제 비메 비조메바다 디자 어게 끝나서서 나야 나서서 맞아봐 대 최종한테도 유라마 셰도스 어디야 루기 네방한테 소그다도시 루기생이라 어디리 티셰리스 티스거세
So at bottom of the page 123, mentioning all kinds of enlightened bodies there. The one thing that Geshe kind of highlighted is the Sambhoga Kaya, or complete enjoyment body, resource body. And that body is defined as an enlightened body that is characterized by 5 certainties, And so Sambhoga Kaya is the body marked by 5 certainties, qualities there.
어디 다 죽었네 뭐는 람두스 뭐는 라오세 타발레 지부 주스 주제 케벌 주주등 참바 너로 타예베 거니 현도 주미제 반제고 얘네 소주고 겨와주고 쇼주고 때 소모 대다 구시 더니 게 상지 기사 상와서 요네 사지 메자와 제비 유데 대신 수지 줘봐 당 주미제베 틀레지 거니 세바시제바 부디 저도 또바 베도 라마데바 이신도보다 빠산 싱신데 되잖아지 개와다 티바 로요도 저번 제도 내네 쇼좀때 고대 이시의 연대 테니서 개발 예발 현디해고스 나 상지에 구조 나샤 dorjee 디제스 제바시네 아니 제바도 해바시고스 디스게세.
So Geshe basically read on the top of page 124 where there is a mention of how a Nirmana Kaya, Tulgu in Tibetan, emanation body, is the one that really manifests and literally benefit, right, sentient beings through interactions. And so there are different types of emanation body. One is called Sotukul, literally means here translated as artwork emanation bodies. So basically, I think so is like emanations who come as a craftsman, right? That's what it is, Sotukul in Tibetan. And then there is the Kyewatukul, the Chokutukul, swim emanation bodies. And then there's a Kyewatukul, it says, it probably requires some explanation. What is translated here is, okay, born emanation body. So emanation body, Kyewatukul sa the Kawakogune. Oh, I see. So it means, the Buddha reborn or manifest in different forms according to the needs of the sentient being. That's the second kind, right? Yeah. So we will stop there and we will come back for Q&A. First we'll go to Zoom, nothing. Okay, then we'll come back here. Yes.
So I have several questions.
Okay.
What was the second?
The emanation, you mean?
Yeah, you had a word spur or sperm or...
Oh, okay, the first one is emanation as craftsmen, right?
Yeah, I
or
got that
builders. The second one is called emanation by birth. I asked Geshe what it means. Means the manifesting in different forms, right? Emanation that comes
I
as
thought that was the third one.
Third one is called
No.
supreme emanation.
Okay.
Supreme, yeah.
Just I'm trying to put this all together. I can see the reflections above on the ceiling,
Yes.
above His Holiness's throne, and they come and go. Sometimes they have sound,
Okay.
and then so my eyes register, my ears register, and then the analysis starts, and then later this is that's a good question, and then the pride arises. So how does this fit into all what you're talking about?
Oh, I see what you experience, what is
Yeah.
that. Okay. Sure. Quran condition this is good. That and again, Kui Namsha Mango Sumburwage. Sanje Kui Namsha Mango Sumburwage, which she that the Neji Tugola Namda so to go that Kiva to Mango Sumburwa. She the Quran Chiva Kashi Shu, chick the this, a Quran Picket, the Kundunki. 이게 꾸여와게 네 강하다바네 왜를 통계서와게 잠잔데 왜 마치 제대로 갈라 있더니야 왜 파지 예로 가라 잠잔 축 왜디게 축거나 차르 스타딩을 하는데 연구도 서와게 그런 소나인 이러와 그래서 그런 소나인데 다 꾸시게 대화 가와 차대요 그래서 꾸시데 대화 옆에 나와게
가제르시데 다데 하고 뭐라 고토노야 타와 통해서 말아 통하고 거라.
So Geshe says really he cannot answer that question because it's your subjective experience, and to what extent
he can't analyze it. He can't analyze it.
Yeah, he can. He said it's for you it's like is it a valid experience or it is just some kind of a not that valid. So
fabrication.
We don't know. Right. Yeah. So yeah. So he said he cannot evaluate it and give you that answer.
Can you explain a little bit more about the staying path, what it is, and why do you have one?
Staying on the path, you mean?
I think you say staying, like a stain.
Oh, you mean the difference between the stains as in defilements, is that what you're talking about? The path and stains or what?
I think so.
Okay.
I just heard it.
Huh? Oh, you mean the path of seeing?
I think you say stained. Stain, like a stain in your t-shirt.
So maybe you're talking about where I talked about the mind and the mental stains happen together, but the stains are temporary. Is that what you're talking about?
You said a path, stained.
Oh, contaminated, uncontaminated.
Yes.
Is that what, okay.
Yes,
So,
sorry.
okay, explain that a little more, right?
Yes, what is it and why do you have
sure,
one?
Sure. Again, that is success. Sangme ki 고den지 숭버와게
라
sakse sangmegi lamgi kyaba subarwa sakse sedi tangzingam de phagzagi kyun shukjo de chesalwage
거래
sangme de kyun mashu chalabwa
거래
odi tesyan kotebu yache de sese yangjo naro nasa sakse sangme sedi
아래 다 드레브게 당제다 드레 니모 좀 마시고 벌 상매를 상매를 쓰어로다 던지 화장실에서는 상제를 좀 쓰고 상제를 쓰고 그랬지
답변은 그 고대버를 전에는 간서 냠내 제대로 강로와게 이제 배션데 오늘 벌써 냠내 제대로 강로야 답변은 태고 챔비 쇼는 전에로와게
라
택쟁이 쇼는 때나로와게 소수 지고기 안에 가서 타바 되니기 란전지 그로 전에디 균슈도 여러게 말왜
제대 쓰어다
다 디페르 샨디고나게 맞아 챵고서 고대버스 고도라
때 비슷해 좀 쓰고 하는 저게 돼
이로와게 고도 친시죠. 그냥 친시 샤로 나서
라
친시 사제 상매기 남게 친시 고대부시.
상매에서도 다 돈이 것도 뭐 남자와 드레 상매에서 그래
그래서
다 거기서 지다 개와 계속 좀 상제에서 그래
먼저 개화강 사제데.
개와 대화되다 그래 뭐야 개와 나서 용으로 봐
그래서 아래 가서 돈이 되게 싫어하게 마선배 개화 되게 강가 사제 개화를
다
씁시고.
돈이 것도 뭐 돈이도 뭐 상제에서나 되게 거기 좀 쉬고 그래서 다 거기서 거기서 폐샤 상제래다 자야 박론석에서 이 상회를 봐라
So I'm asking him again to give a really clear example of each kind, right? Because he started explaining same concepts, which probably won't help you that much, because we become quite conceptual knowledge. Well, I mean, when we talk about what is called uncontaminated path, undefiled, the good example would be the wisdom that sees or realizes emptiness, right? That's we call the undefiled, uncontaminated path. But a lot of the even good actions, good karmas that we do as ordinary people are contaminated in the sense that they are somehow linked to self-grasping and the imprints of self-grasping. Does that help a little bit? Okay, yeah.
Well, the distinction between contaminated and uncontaminated is made on the basis of not ordinary people, but bodhisattvas, on the Arya bodhisattvas.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So not ordinary people. So in that case, that implication is that even Arya bodhisattvas who have realized directly emptiness, they have contaminated paths.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will ask him. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I understood what you said, right? Kurang this is the subject some said in the the teba chamber ki lamla jan shigur wage. Chidu Galia and Chanju Samba Papa in wage. Satam and Dagalo Yorwa. Chidu Gal Papa Lamina Sangme in Kabimara Saze Lam Yorwas or the Papa Roake. Dipia Karishawan, Saze Lampa.
제대로 너무 좀 샤주이다
제대로 그러면 돈이 심나?
돈이 무슨 더 많이 더 샤주면 다 돈이 더 많이 더 샤주고 있다
Right, yeah, so you're right. Even the Arya Bodhisattvas, right, only when they are completely absorbed into emptiness, non-dualistically, that's different. But when they come out of that meditation, then we can say in that situation, they have contaminated, let's say, path or,
Yeah, so when they meditate on compassion, bodhicitta, or any of 12 links, whatever they meditate, that could be, not necessarily, it could be contaminated. Is this?
Yes.
It says here that in this section it says whether it's
Where are you, page?
It's on page 120, on the first top paragraph, talks about contaminated and contaminated.
Okay.
It's the distinction is whether it's in terms of whether or not it's impaired by ignorance that apprehends true existence, or any of its predispositions.
Right.
So,
inference,
the first one is definitely refers to Arya Bodhisattvas that apprehends true existence. Has to do with self-grasping, grasping at true existence. But the last part is, or any of its predispositions, does that apply to the Bodhisattvas on the three highest, the pure grounds?
Okay.
Which they have already eliminated the grasping. They cannot have it. Even in their post-meditation period, they don't have grasping at true existence. And yet they seem to be included by this, or its predispositions. Does that refer to that?
Okay. Tanda di shungna la kore lokna cheben tanda sakje same ki kheba sha rwa ge peje shungna ya ane da mari ba da de phaja ke le ba de sakje che ma le ba de same sha rwa ge che da di changju sem sa shi ge za quran ko da chen na da de ime ke se she nang rwa ge ji de kan ya daksa le ne be changju sem ba yo rwa ge daksa sem ne be changju sem ba de ge di wene chen na konzo ya da same ma shi sakje yo ma rwa se rwa ge che do la le bi ne rwa ge Tanda di Korea lockdown cheme di na le konzo chu de be so di ne yin na so da
La.
Korea lockdown cheme na sakse same ge yewa dan de cheda jo ro ba di na le ya changju sama changma chu de daksal ne be changju se ba di na chu de yo wane daksal ne be changju sama de ge di ane nyamsha ine re chedo ine re sakme ma shin yo ma ro ba so ge
de da 머리 보자 사서 딘지 방사에 계셔 이러.
어쨌든 원에 전에 상매장 인국으로 봐.
어디 상매 더워져래다.
딱 그냥 더워졌는데. 아. 바닥에 레버 열어 와. 다디 가서디 당살라 단 이게 디 당제대 여마로 와게 바닥에 레버 여마로 해서 그래.
바자 당살라
시립디 차도 말다 레드고 말봐.
네, 당살디 시제 바자에 열어 이제 열어다.
제대 갈라디 아니 가서 다 sakse 람 유에 등으로 차도.
네, 다用좀 돼 쉬워. 그지. 저다 좀 우선 또 무슨 저用쉬어 봐.
알레 당제면에 디다 제도라 박자되게 디체도. Yeah, so clarification is yes, even the Bodhisattvas on the last three we call pure grounds, right? Although they have gotten rid of the grasping of the self, but still have the imprints. So when they are in the post-meditation period, they have little issue here, contamination issue. Not a big one like others down below, they have a little bit, Yeah.
Those are called subtle imprints?
Yeah, subtle imprints, yes.
So,
Yeah.
predisposition. Yeah, just to go back to the original answer. So the contamination here, when it's not talking about
Ordinary people only.
ordinary people, and it's not talking about good or bad actions, right?
Right.
We're talking, it's always good actions, but it could be
Sure.
contaminated because they're in.
Right, sure. The Quran says the Koa the Yaku Yunai said the Tanda de Sagze Same Yawa Che de Roage, the Ganzo Kiwu Tame Barwas, Chigoje Maimbache, and then Satobola Nebe Changju Samba de Zola Yorwa Sagze Same Roage. She did Tanda de Sagze Same said the Le Sanguch and Same but say Nibajan said Sakche Kitchen must Le Sango in a Sakze Yorwas. That's right, yeah. So it has not necessarily to do with good karmas or the bad karmas. The good karmas can be contaminated, yes, you're right, yes. And then both the ordinaries and the transcendental Arya beings, right, on different levels have, yes. Go ahead.
Forgive me, I don't even know if I have the right question, but I'm trying to clear a confusion in my physical heart. When we speak of wisdom embodied emptiness, is there an embodied version? Like physically embodied wisdom realizing emptiness, or is it heart center embodied wisdom realizing emptiness, or simply mind, or all of the above in some form? That's the question.
So the question is, I missed the question, but I understood your statement part. Can you repeat the question one more time?
I'm wondering if there's an embodiment to wisdom realizing emptiness, like a heart embodiment.
Okay. Oh, I see. Ale morangi da chiwadi titangi medesam with the king and the Tony to be share up Rovage. Chewa in digi da Chiganzo Lulia Chasha in a Tony to be share up the Ning that Dawa you did just Rovage. What don't be share up the share up Chigo Chig Tony to me Rovage. The Ning is our in the Ning that in the Dawa of Chu, Koran Kogu did in the year in us again. So good Chasha in the Ning that Dawa you think it's again.
지금 다 스무디 뭐 싸움에도 심 말 계속 해야 되면 닝 좋아 그대는 미좀 키고
Tanga ke chenen tes la she dollar din she yo maro ke ning la to ni de shar de wa se ne ke she maro wa ta ning la de yanga la chaung ma de shen tes yo shogro wa
맞아
de lamne de gyo na ke
피지 지기다
I'm double checking before I say how I understood him confirmation well I mean Geshe said from like a Sutrayana point of view, we really, don't talk about like as if the wisdom realized emptiness is embodied in the heart or somewhere heart chakra or somewhere related to that, some body part, but let's say maybe in Tantra, highest yoga, sometimes we talk about different psychic channels, and there's a heart chakra, and sometimes we talk about realizations happen in the central psychic channel, which is related to the heart. Maybe we don't know, right? I don't know whether that answers your question or not. From Buddhism has a sutra perspective that there's no such correlation between wisdom, realized emptiness embodied in the heart or chakra or somewhere there. There isn't. Tantra, maybe there could be possibility, right? Because there is like we talk about the chakras and then the energy wind flowing into the central channel and all of that, right? Sometimes realization happens within that, so there may be, right?
There, it said here that bodhisattvas, there is a distinction between the different grounds in terms of taking mature birth. As for instance, most of the ones who take birth as kings in the world are first ground bodhisattvas. Okay, but nowadays there is no Chakravartin king in this world. Does that mean that there is no first ground bodhisattvas?
There is no what?
There are no first ground bodhisattvas since there is no Chakravartin king in this world? Or does it mean that there may be bodhisattvas, but if they are manifesting as Chakravartin king, they would be manifesting in other worlds?
Okay.
Or does it refer to being reborn as Chakravartin king or manifesting as is there a difference between these two?
Sure. That again the kasorata sachu delia da ko nyamsha nega la da ko cheba kam sangma tongning usum do danda res la ro ge chega chedo gun nega so ani yende lo so be cheba shisha ro ge di cheba shiwa delia ani chewa sangwa de da chewe chig do ge bana ani karata di marwe karsa ta di kholu jube jebu chig la marwe ge
나
kholu jube jebu be
그래 다
kholu jube jebu
랭실랑 되네 숨쉬어서 봐야 돼 리바 털로도
디게 지단 제보 랍고로 콜로지비 제보 랍고 알레 당고 타니에
콜로지 저서
로바 콜로지비 제보 예메나 디게 전주 삼아 디게 디 로바게 안 코라 튜바 때제 콜로지비 제보 서고래 코라 뭐스코나 콜로지비 제보 제발는 거로 서고 가르서 거래서 내 제바에서 튜바 때는 튜바로 와사게
아니 그거지 근데 콜로지 제보 된다게 제가 해내는 현동식이라서 그러지
알레 튜바 때문에 그저 말와게
나
콜로지비 제보 주셔 줬어요 말와
말 자고는 신소
Yeah, so that part is when again the Satobe Chanju Sama de Kanga College give the shade Rodela College give language. The idea is that even bodhisattvas on the ground, because all of them are Aryas, right? And they could take rebirth as king. Actually, in the Tibetan, it's a universal king, Chakravartin Raja. Right, so if they see that's the way they can benefit, right, a certain continent or whatever the case may be. So in which case, depending on the levels, some of them can take rebirth as a king of one continent, right? Others can do 2 or 3 or 4. It's not a manifestation, emanation. It's like taking literal birth. Yeah. Yes, please. Yes.
The question online is, was the first emanation body called craftsman? If so, can you explain that more?
Okay. 다게게 소유 주고 여바게 주고리야 소유 주고라 비셔로와 소유 주고
나
주고리야 소유 주고 여바
소주고
저거 주고 라야 되게 대세 만나러나 갈라고 그래서 소유 주고 람나
소주고 담에다 사서야 리모서야 소다 this way.
Yeah, so that's like emanations in the form of like the artists and sculptors and builders and that, yeah, architect and yeah.
So could somebody like His Holiness the Dalai Lama be a Chakravartin king?
Could he be?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe he is presently.
Right.
I'm
Sure.
asking.
Quran condition this or ben konsa kyamgön chamboro chi dina rowa gen. Kyamgön romo che rowa gen.
Yeah.
Kyamgön romo che ane roba che bena ane karsa korta college be kebo rowa gen. College be kebo nal ya kewa shetu ko rowa so rowa gen. Yema ta tanda kyamgön romo che college be kebo res lam digre ma res korta.
Did it tomorrow?
No so.
Could you tomorrow?
No so. In that kewa shetu ko res lam cho.
Did it told you that?
Yeah, Geshe said, yeah, somebody like His Holiness Dalai Lama, he believes that he can be reborn as a Chakravartin Raja, but right now we cannot say he is Chakravartin Raja, but the fact is he's not. Yeah. Okay, so we will go with the prayer request right now.
Tungmi chomju shungi la ya tseli deba taik ti angsa konglo gupchu cheba khasin tarisum soji la chongsha kongi chede tungme tang teni khasin shwedi kongi chede motune tungme nangro sing tu tanda mengan la chazan mengan la shende tujun pyudingi ki tansi sazan shoro tinani chowa di khasin chongdo ba Tsen ya Dr. Wu Ding Ming sa khasin chinda thangbe tari chupshi la chongsha kongche de tungme naro nas de dine tsedan tenba shuzo giru ningba chigi pinja resigdo Vicky Rulard ma cancer neba che cancer de paru chigi cha yantriyan sa nasa radi yanji ya lao yin sare cancer dirba oti ani nishi singda yon ya chito tungme naro nas prayer requests today include, our prayer requests for those who have recently passed today include prayers for Taik Thi Anh, who passed away on the 31st at the age of 90. So please keep Taik Thi Anh in your prayers and dedications. And then continued prayers are also requested for Dr. Wu Ding Ming, who passed away on January 14th. May Taik Thi Anh and Dr. Wu Ding Ming and all of those who have recently passed be free from all suffering and purified of all negative karma accumulated since beginningless times. May they be reborn with all precious freedoms and endowments. May they meet the Dharma and a qualified guru and quickly achieve liberation and enlightenment. Prayers requested for those who are still with us include prayers for Vicky Roulard, who is experiencing a relapse of cancer. So please keep Vicky in your thoughts and prayers. Along with Vicky, may all sentient beings be free from all obstacles, hardship, and negative karma. May their wishes and prayers be fulfilled. May they be guided by the blessings of the three jewels, and may they experience everlasting peace and happiness.
Thank you, Geshe. So we will first do salutation, recitation, and dedication of Arya Avalokiteshvara, Buddha of compassion for the deceased, and then we will do the medicine Buddha salutation, recitation, dedication for the living who need healing prayers. So there should be one page somewhere on your table that has those prayers. Chadong Kolu Jube Gyabo Dong Jendong Gyawa Sanglu Sangye Dong Kangla Kangdu Tela Tet Jimba Jenre Sila Chanze Lo Omani Peme Hung Omani Peme Hung Omani Peme Hung. Omani Beme Hungri Gyawa Di Nyodo Da Jenre Sewan Dubjone Dowa Chigya Mali Di Sala Gweba Sho Medicine Buddha Toje Gwenla Nyombe Jomden De Senzang Tebe Nindu Dungwe Se Doso Nese Sangye Bindu Yaye Wel Chaze Lo Om Namo Bhagavate Begaze Guru Bindu Ya Tabaranza Ya Tadangada Ya Arahade Samya Sambuddha Ya Teta Om Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze Begaze Ranza Samukade So Teta Om Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze Begaze Ranza Samukade Da Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze Begaze Ranza Samukade So Gyawa Di Nyodo Da Membe Yebu Dubjone Dowa Chigya The Sala Gweba Sho. We have this booklet and we are on page 3. Lord Jazu Vidum Bega De Gesam Pongwe Chido Mimba Shen Tenba Zingla Wangdo Jichu Tangyan Chugun Chola So Wan De page 5. Ma Wan Dame Gunjen Donga De Kangri Jongso Ninda Sezewa Jamgun Gyawa Niwa Yapse Tangson Dinzi Mawe Shiba Zu Tenzin Chebe Yingon Zebe Xieje Nigun Changzhou Tendu Go Longda Tamzhe Bebe Beyu Duja Gyazu Gundo Shabden Sho Tesang Gongdan Chezu Zombe Yongzo Yure Tobu Nyaki Shin Longri Tejen Nubu Ben Tubden Kangri Dabo Shabden Sho Dona Kongmen Zeba Namda Gu Dendan Rube Pende Jungwe Pendo Jume Chibe Jinle Je Gesan Duje Dendo Shabden Chizi Lamen Tukje Myolamda Gesan Duje Dendang Zam Shozong Dodo Jido Dongba Ye Jeda Dungwe Lundo Sho page 9. Ranja Jinge Gombo Seba Men Zodo Namje Geyung Drama Sho Chozo Zeye Lazo Tamze Tade Mishi Choge Ngudu Zu Tubden Chidang Losan Gyawa Shiru Denban Zembe Beyun Je Tade Duje Yongwe Shenye Yangdu Ninje Ongbo Shab Jiden Sumgun Chana Bemen Du Denbe Azawa Soso Tawa Ye Namda Sudin Yangda Lam Losan Yeden Bedo Shabden Sho Tujo Gyaltsen Nunzi Yangbe Shi Samjo Namje Samjin Gongjo Shila Sonjo Debe De Denbe Ngada Chenbo Shabden Sho Chebe Donga Kowa Bojo Chebe Rilan Siyu Bomda Je Zunbe Dunden Leshe Kedo Shenyen Chenbo Shabden Sho Kebe Langdo Kushe Zeda Je Zunbe Chara Nizo Sangben Duje, Regun, Yishe No, Sumden, Xinyin, Chenpo, Shabden Sho, Tesang, Rula, Jawe, Dende, Minju, Daje, Sangme, Sijin, Ba, Labjen, Zidin, Dende, Sede, Xinyin, Chenpo, Shabden Sho, Shosong, Gyawa, Seje, Chenla, Da, Tuden, Tamjen, Songmen, Son, Daja, Lasang, Dabe, Dem, Jeda, Mumbe, Dungu, Lundu, Sho, Changju, Simjo, Rinpo, Je, Maye, Bana, Jewa, Nyamba, Meba, Yang, Kone, Gondo, Pewa, Sho, Dongni, Dawa, Rinpo, Je, Maye, Ban, Jewa, Nyamba, Meba, Kone, Gondo, Pewa, Sho, Sa, Xi, Beijing, Joshi, Medo, Dao, Rira, Lingxi, Ninde, Genba, De, 上界行多面的为我，如果能达行了就把手看着รา为过为行感受，平常的话马律中为，现在是我定心叫做下边四点八度等就一当古如让那面的那个你要答应。